Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deeply Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 319. Today is Saturday, May 30th, 2020, and I'm glad you could join me today. It's alternating between rainy and sunny, so what would it be? Get my cup of coffee, had a late lunch. And we decided that now would be a good time to do a podcast. I don't know, I was sort of debating whether I wanted to do Saturday or Sunday. I'm like, whatever. Get it done. So, this week will be mostly spinning. As you do. And, what was it? I broke into a new bag of coffee, so for whatever reason, I had ordered the wrong thing, and so I ended up getting ground coffee instead of whole beans, so I eventually powered through that. So I just opened my fresh bag, and it's like, I don't even know what they're doing that makes it tasty. It's tasty though, so that's making me happy. And hopefully that won't be too crazy. So, in terms of finished knitting, I have none. I used it all of last week. So it will be forever from now until I finish something else, because what would it be? It might just take all summer to finish the projects I'm currently working on, or at least finish the knitting projects that I'm currently working on. I suppose my spinning is probably doing just fine. So I did actually manage to finish off half a repeat on this bad boy. So this is the Sizzle Pop. It's a Sizzle Pop. It is a Leslie Ann Robinson design, and I'm knitting it out of Smutzerella's yarns in the You Can Never Keep Me Down and You Can Never Have Enough Socks. I do think I did manage to get a pretty good photo of it this morning, because for some reason the background doesn't come in very clearly when I hold it up, but you can sort of see the lines there. The wrong side brioche. So got another half repeat done this week, which is good. I did the annoying row during knit night this week, so here's my dangle. I shall move my dangle up. So I am now up to, I counted this. It's like, I might be up to 13 lines now, so that's cool. So up next is the more, my pattern setup row, but I anticipate there won't be too much craziness on there. I was, what would it be? I did notice one mistake, so when I was working the annoying row, and I just sort of decreased over it, so it's a little funny looking, but not the end of the world. Totally missed a decrease, so I just picked it up later. But I don't know, there are a couple of small little funny things that were not worth ripping back for. Like big things, I'll fix the big things, but not these, whatever, 3 stitches off nonsense. So, haven't weighed it recently, but there's still lots and lots of yarn. It's getting much closer to wingspan at this point. Like, it's sort of the case where if I hold end to end, I sort of have my wrist pointing in a little bit when I'm doing that, so almost to wingspan. And that's, or what would it be? I would like to use as much yarn as possible. So that is still my goal, but I can definitely see a situation in which I am done. As you do. So it would be really great if I could use as much as possible, but I'm also gonna be cognizant of if it starts getting ridiculously huge as well. I had a bit of a yarn avalanche earlier, so as you do. So this is my Mesa sweater wrap. This is a Romy Hill design that I am knitting out of my hand-spun fleece. This is, what would it be? So, whatever. Washed, dyed, combed, hackled, spun, plied. What was it? I think I mentioned last week that I had missed one of the instructions, which was that you actually had a couple of border rows before you did the color transition. And you can sort of see on the screen, excuse me, this light and dark thing going on. So I ripped back to the point, knit my couple of rows of transition, and now I've reintroduced the third color into this bad boy. So, what would it be? So I'm glad I got that worked out. I also did post a question in the Romy Studio group. So there is actually like a pretty huge team of moderators there. So I had posted a question like, hey, I think like here's what's going on, here's what I figured out already, I'm pretty happy with how that's going. What's gonna happen if I change the sleeves, whether I have vertical slits or horizontal slits? And so it was the case where the mods are like, not sure, let's ask Romy. So then Romy weighed in and she's like, it will probably drape differently. So what I'm going to do next, because I'm not at the point where I have to decide yet. Is I'm going to find a rag sheet somewhere in the garage. I know that we have some, and I'm gonna cut it in half, and half of it I will set up with horizontal slits, and the other half of the sheet I'll set up with vertical slits, and I'll put it on my body and see what happens. So there's scissors that I've probably used on paper, but whatever. Like, I don't sew, but like, I observe people sewing, and muslin is what they do, so it's probably worth doing a muslin to see what's going to happen. So, that is a story there. I might sit down and reread the pattern again and make sure I'm not going totally crazy. Because I totally missed some instructions because I'd read through it as like, there were details there. And of course this popped off. I've also noticed that I am more likely to keep going on a row if it is the beginning of row side of things. So I don't know what it'd be, because then I'm like setting up the next color, so then I'll work back to this side, and this side seems to be a little bit easier of a stopping point. Whatever. So, but it's coming along. You can see this brief region where it's not very stripy, and that was my little transition. So, it should get stripy again pretty soon. So, not too crazy, very stretchy. Maybe a little bit less stretchy on that end, but whatever. All my markers are back in place. I've just been keeping this ball punctured through here to keep it out of the way, because I want to wait till as long as possible before cutting anything. So I might have quite a few little balls punctured on there as I go. But so far so good. Would it be definitely not too far in this project either, which is why I know it may take all summer to get through this. It's not helping that, like, not having very many opportunities to leave the house is resulting in less knitting time. I've definitely been hyper-focused on spinning this week, as you do. So, let's see. I think I want to start with the finished spinning, and then I can talk about my work in progress. So, last week I had been somewhat foiled. I think, what was it? If I am remembering correctly, I was either spinning singles or maybe plying my first skein in the last episode. And so I did have a chance between Sunday evening and all day Monday to get much further along in the plying, and then I ended up getting my last skeins, wound off last night, so I'd finally counted everything. So, what I have here are all of the finished skeins. This represents, roughly speaking, about a pound of fiber between everything. So this guy's 4 ounces, this guy's 4 ounces, this one is 5, and then these samples are probably less than 4 ounces, but roughly speaking, about a pound. I don't know, maybe I was feeling like a small amount of anxiety that I hadn't quantified and posted it. I don't know, it's been like a, what would it be? It's been a stressful week, guys. Whatever. In life, in the nation, like the whole bit. So, what would it be? So that was one way that I was like trying to decrease the anxiety, was sitting down and being like, okay, how much yardage did I end up getting? So, and then when I got the total, it was just like, oh my gosh. What is going on? So, what would it be? So, I had, what would it be? This guy is, whatever, 895 yards, I believe. Something close to that. Now there's been so much yarn that, I can't even remember. Alright. Okay, 873 yards. This is my Fun Onion Bat. It was my travel project that was getting me down a little bit because there was no travel. So this is, the overall impression is actually a lot of green. So this has sort of like would it be a whole lot of different shades. It's a very interesting yarn. So there's like purples and browns, a couple different shades of green, as well as like blue. Very complicated color going on here, which is really cool. This guy is my Three Waters farm that I finished. So this was I have no clue what wool is. It was a bat. It had all sorts of crazy stuff in it. This is the Three Waters farm, so this is the Lakeside Forest colorway. I ended up getting 495 yards of a 3-ply. It is 85% Polworth, 15% Tussa silk, and all sorts of pretty gorgeousness going on there. I'm trying to keep things tilted towards the window for maximum beauty. There we go. It's gorgeous. I plied up all of my little skeins of alpaca. I bound it into one single thing, but I was actually pretty spot on this guy. I had oh, it's also a little bit twisty and crazy. I had 192, or wait, let's see, what did I get? Yeah, it was 196, 192, and 188 yards. So I think that ends up being, we'll just pop back to Rav. Yeah, so this ended up being 576 yards in 4 ounces. Alpaca Starbright nylon from Spotted Circus alpaca that I split into component colors and turned into a bat. The light is making it look cooler than real life. This purple has more pink in it. But whatever, there's not too much that I can do about how terrible purple looks on webcam. But let me bring this super close to you guys because I am just so pleased with the hand of this yarn. So even though they are pretty fine, it's sort of on that wooleny sort of fine, so it's very lofty. You can see the very soft ply structure, and it is just so soft and squishy. I'm really happy with how this yarn ended up turning out. This is my first time spinning something that has so much alpaca in it, and I'm really happy with how that guy turned out. So not only did I get some pretty big yardage out of it, because someone had warned me that watch out, like your alpaca is gonna be pretty dense, but this was very light, very fluffy. So it was not what would it be? I did not overspin it. Which is good. Though maybe a little bit overspun because everything is so twisty crazy. And so then the last thing was, here are the singles that were bringing me down. Well, that's too strong a word. What I ended up doing was, my mother-in-law ended up, she's like the president of the Ohio's Knitter Guild or the Columbus Knitting Guild or something like that, and someone had given her fiber in a spindle, and so I was the only person she knew that's fun. So she passed on this, it is an alpaca alpaca angora mohair silk blend. and that's sort of what made my stash dash plans like a little bit strange, because it took a really, really long time to spin all these singles. And then I had this guy here, which is a 1 ply of Llama Down, and the blend. This one is all of the blend. And then I had 2 other samples from Judith Mackenzie's classes that I took, not this April, but last April at the DFW Fiberfest. So I spun all of her samples up, plied it with this yarn, and then I made a skein of this. And then there's this guy here, which is the greasy, the greasy fiber. So I'm not 100% sure which class went with what. I know the llama for sure was a part of the down class. I think this guy was also, like this one was merino yak silk. I think that this white was actually a part of the shade tint and tone class. So about, I believe the name of the class is like shifting light. But I decided to sort of play with that shifting light concept by taking this fiber here, which is more of a tone, and combining with my 2 different shades, my tint, and this guy is tone on tone, basically. So I thought that was cool. So they're very, very interesting yarns. I ended up getting actually pretty ridiculous yardage, all things considered. It's all 2-ply, and trying to see if apparently I disturbed the mouse and stopped the recording. I caught it pretty quick though. So let me just pop over and figure out what I ended up doing. So I ended up getting 498 yards out of this. So everything I ended up spinning everything really, really fine. So I think the lesson here is count every last little scrap of yardage you manage to get, because you never know how much that's going to end up counting for stash dash. So whatever, like, oh, this still needs a bath. That was my debate as to what day I wanted to record. So, and I've told you whatever, like fairly normal yardages for all these things. So lace, fingering, light fingering, more lace, about 1 pound of fiber. And when you count the stash dash yardage for these things, so basically the distance it went through the orifice, I got 7,219.4 meters. So last week I showed you all my stash dash progress, and that was a sweater and a hat with yarn held tripled, and I got like 1,600 yards or 1,600 meters for stash dash. Man, the spinning, the spinning's where it's at. So this was not a tremendous amount of effort, but whoo boy, is it gonna end up making up most of my yardage. So not quite halfway to 15K with just what's in my hands, but pretty close. So this is probably the reason why I have bags and bags of handspun, because I spin like a fiend in the summertime. And I'm not knitting with my handspun as fast as I'm making it. As you do. As you do. So, what would it be? But what would it be? It'd be the case where this sort of represents a bunch of different things. So this wild onion guy here, like that was like a hybrid spin between my Bosworth spindle and my wheel, and then I applied them together on my wheel. And I was within 10 yards. So in terms of consistency between spindle and wheel, it was like, whoa. It wasn't the case where one was very, very different than the other. I'm really hoping the bath chills this guy out because I'm hoping to make socks with it. It is just so freaking cheerful. And not my usual, not entirely my usual colors. There is way more green, and actually it's showing up cooler on the screen than it actually is. There is acid green in here. I swear. You can maybe see it a little bit better up close, if it's not like totally washed out. So I know there's a lot of good spinning in here, so even though it happened all at once, in a way, it's good stuff. The lion's share of, what would it be? But, like, I just have to laugh a little bit, because, like, this guy counted for 1,379. This one was 1,800. So this guy was a little bit shy of 1,600. So this 1,595. This guy was 1,827. And then this guy, because of its pretty massive yardage, ended up being 2,417. So what would it be? That lace weight just adds up. Just adds up. So, quite a lot of finished yarn. I should really give it a bath. Whatever. I also need to post it in the threads, so it hasn't been too much, time on Ravelry today, so. I was taking some photos last night, and then I realized I should just wait till the sunshine, so that's what I ended up doing this morning, and it was probably a good choice. So I think I'd showed last time some of the things that I had pulled aside to spin, just so that I could sort of get rid of some of the smaller quantities of stuff that I had floating around. And one of those things was actually like samples that I ended up getting from yarn school. So received probably about 2 ounces of bat from Strumpet Craft. Did or what was it? Had some yarn school. What would it be? I'm like totally blanking the name, but like had their what is it? Char takes all of the leftover dye from dye school and then ends up dyeing yarn with the leftover dye. So I think it's like yarn school dropouts or something like that is what it is. And then Nicole had like included, and that was probably about 1 ounce of fiber. And then Nicole had included like a sample of Shetland from her sheep. So she has a couple of sheep and whatever in Harveyville, Kansas. So what I ended up doing was I took all those things, I split it into roughly 2 ounce piles. I know I was probably a little bit off on that estimate, but not too crazy. And then yesterday I sat down and I blended them on the drum carder. So the bat had quite a lot of extra on it, and it was like thickly applied onto the surface. And I knew I was not going to enjoy spinning that much thick stuff. I think it was like silk noil, I believe. I don't know, it could have been something else though. So I knew that needed to get mixed up. And those bats were pink, blue, pink, and sparkle. The Shetland was sort of medium brownish gray. And then the Yarn School Dropout was like yellow, green, and white. And so I was showing this to the Knit Night crew on Thursday, and they're like, "You're putting those together." So I did. What would it be? It was like, you know what? If I add all these things together, then I create a thing that adds up to something that is closer to 4 ounces, closer to a more regular amount of yarn. So this is the bat that ended up happening. So what you're seeing is, overall, I think the appearance is, when you first look at it, what you see is pink, possibly. I don't know. Maybe I need to grab up a different bat. And that's because that like silk is showing up as like short bits mixed in. And then if you look really closely at it, you can see the blue and the pink and the green and the yellow. But the overall appearance, and also sort of the darker Shetland in there as well. So that ends up adding like a little bit of shade to this particular bat. And then there is some blue sparkle in it for sure. And it's not, I don't know. It wasn't the nice sparkle. It's the more plasticky feeling sparkle. But the overall thing is actually that it ends up being sort of light, warm, taupey sort of thing with the pink. And this is a bigger section of bat. So I try to get this close without getting it too close. So you can maybe see hints of the yellow and the blue in there. So when you look at it closely, there's a lot of colors hanging out in there. Sorry. Trying to get it close enough so you can see, but and then much better blended texture. So the texture is actually distributed throughout it. I'm like trying to get it about right. So I think overall it's probably fine. If I do decide to do anything with it, I can always over dye it blue because it's definitely on the much more pastel side, and that probably could be the same could be said of what have you. The same could be said of what the original fiber was anyways, because there was a lot of white in the Yarn School Dropout. But this is how it's spinning up. So there are these pink chunkies in it, which I am fine with. And then it sort of has sort of a brown, it's spinning up looking whatever, like a light warm brown. Definitely warm. So far so good. What would it be? So I could decide after it's all done that I want to over dye blue, and that's fine. I have blue food coloring, I can do that whenever I want, but so far it's been entertaining. So I split up the first bat into 8s. I think. This is half of the first bat. And I tried to mix it up as much as possible when I was doing it. So it was the case where I wasn't super good about the mixing on the first bat. So there ended up being a pretty thick layer of the pink silk chunkies on it. And there's also like, yeah, no, there's all sorts of interesting things. But now I get to have sort of that fun texture without necessarily having to deal with, what would it be, getting giant chunks of it that you just can't even draft. So this is good for the drafting. It may have been cool if I had only done one pass, but it wasn't, the silk wasn't quite blended enough after one pass. So then I split the bats in half and then combined half of one with half of the other to create these final bats. So that was fun. That was a nice little activity for my Friday after work time. And yeah, so far so good on the spin. What I have on tap next realized I hadn't grabbed everything. These are probably going to happen a little bit later, and I will have to decide what I'm going to do with these guys. It may be the case where, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how I want to handle it. Because, what would be, so this is Nest Maiden's Wish. It's a BFL silk blend. And all of the yarn that I've seen made from that fiber is just super duper gorgeous. So it's possible there's just no way to go wrong. But probably what's going on next on the wheel are these bats. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I made these bats at Yarn School or I made these bats at SSK. I think I already spun my SSK bats, so these must be Yarn School bats. So one of them is mostly blues. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I made these at Yarn School, with like a little bit of orange swirled in there. And I'm assuming I must be somewhere in the range of 2 ounces. And then this guy is a lot more colorful, but definitely does have a pretty good blue base to it. These have been hanging out for quite some time. But this one has, it definitely does have a pretty good blue base to it. But there's also, it looks like there's like a gray layer to this as well. So this one is a little bit more comfortable, or colorful. Here we go. There's some sparkle, all sorts of crazy stuff in here. But yeah, no, there's definitely blue in here as well. So I think I'm gonna spin them up individually as singles, and then fly them together. Yeah, this guy's pretty big. So this one is maybe a little bit less crazy, but it's all, I think it was the case where I just grabbed everything that was blue on the table of batting and went from there. So there's like a little bit of red and orange and purple in here, but it's mostly blue. So I think those would balance each other out pretty nicely. I think they will look pretty cool together. And yeah, I think this was going to be applying some of the things that I had learned in like Clemis and Clemis drum carding classes. It was just fun to have a giant pile of things you could add together to make a bat. So I'm pretty sure this is what's going to happen next. And then that will sort of run through my totally unaccounted for fiber stash, and then it will be yarn, and it will take up slightly less room, and life will continue on. So, and that should be fun. Fun to spin. So, love to be, but this is my last spin the bin fiber. So, after this, then I will, like, that'll be done. So these guys were also a part of my bin as well, so I should probably post in a couple places on the internet. Yeah, whatever. Well, while the video is processing, I'll run around and take care of all that. So this one was in my bin. I think I counted about 4 ounces of this one in the bin, and then this guy, all of it was in the bin as well. So once I do the nest, then I will be done. Way early this year. And then I'll have to decide what the next project's going to end up being. I have a suspicion it's going to be another sweater spin. Because what would it be? It's a little bit exploded. And then it may be the case where I end up, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I just need to, or would it be? It seems like I've had a lot of plans and intentions, and so I just need to let that be an open-ended question until the time when I can decide. But if that brings us into July, then I don't know. I guess technically speaking, yeah, no, I think well, the Tour de France is not happening this year. The Tour de Fleece is happening at the usual time, despite the lack of cyclists. So having 3 weeks for a focus project probably isn't too crazy. Technically speaking, I think I started this for, I don't know, I don't think I actually did start this for Tour de Fleece. It was Tour de Fleece fiber that I didn't start spinning till October. So I actually made really good progress on this, so considering it was a spindle project, and those seem to linger for a little bit longer for me. Oh. So Mondo yardage, really excited about that. Really excited to get some weird small things just added up in such a way where it could be something useful. I know, sort of the power of combining things together. And what would it be? And there may be certain things in the stash where it's just like, you're taking up too much room in the bag. You're gonna get spun up right now. So, what would it be? The odds of me starting something new right now? Knitting wise, super low. But such is life. So, let's see. I think that is everything that I wanted to cover this week. So go forth and add up all of the crazy stash yardage. So not too bad. Almost, or what would it be? Up to not the case? Yeah, I'm just like a little bit shy of 9,000 meters so far, so not too bad for 2 weeks. Though all of my excitement of Stash Dash is going to be early. That was me starting with a bang, and then face landed in the water. Just imagine like the person in the jet ski, and then they let go of the handle and go, wow, that's me in Stash Dash. I can only propel myself so far by saving things. But I know, I was still super impressed with the yardage, so for how many meters that counted for. So what would it be? Not too crazy. Other things I wanted to cover. I know. I hope you guys stay safe, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So take care, guys. Bye bye.